Hello. We do not have a Solo for Life clip for today because I am all out of podcast audio. I'm hoping to have one this weekend, recording wise. However, I'm not sure. Things have been very busy for a lot of people. I understand that. However, I don't mind uploading thoughts that I have for 10 minutes. I'll try not. I'm definitely going to keep this condensed down to 10 because I could definitely easily go on to 30 minutes to an hour. I've done that before. So, anyway, the topic for today is Tiny Thor. This game has been absolutely fantastic, and it's definitely going to run right behind Resident Evil 4 2023. So, what drew me towards this game in the first place? Well, the hammer throwing mainly because it was actually fresh, it was different, it was something I personally haven't seen. If there's a game very similar to this throwing mechanic, please let me know. However, anyway, the usually when it comes to games like this isn't a Metroidvania, I guess, technically. People get very particular about how they describe Metroidvanias. I believe what I come to understand from people on Facebook and Reddit, Metroidvanias are caves, castles, I suppose, and you had to go grab a special item to come back and unlock another path. I don't know. It seems like it's very different with many people. I don't. It's so strange how people get into fights over it. So you're probably wondering, why not? Why don't I just play Hollow Knight or Shovel Knight? What's the difference? What's making this game stand out? Because well, mainly because, see, Hollow Knight has really good bosses, and you know those those bosses are extraordinarily fun. However, the level design I find extremely bare and extremely mundane. Now, of course, there are sections that are very treacherous, but they're not. It's just not enough. There's not enough engagement with the level design. And with Shovel Knight, the boss fights are terrible, but the level design is really good. It's pretty much up to par with what Tiny Thor is. I don't feel like the boss fights complement. The boss fights don't really complement mechanics very well, in my opinion. But with that being said, I've only fought the first two bosses, and I just didn't really care for them very much. And maybe I need to go back. Shovel, if anything, the only one I would go back to is Shovel Knight. If I'm going to play Hollow Knight again, I would want to use a strategy guide. That way, it would make the backtracking less tedious. So back on to Tiny Thor, I if you noticed, I've been uploading little videos of me doing my own little challenges, just seeing how long I can go without using a hammer, without double jumping. Let's just say that some of those don't even a lot of that doesn't even last long. The hammer goes out the window. The no hammer kills goes out the window on the second level because the snakes compromise the little narrow passages, and I can't simply jump over them because I tried. I was like, well, maybe there's a tiny little window where I can jump over the snakes. Nope. No double jumping. That goes out the window the moment you obtain the double jump on the third level. However, of course, I can still do 100% gems, no damage. Of course, no dying. That's just included in the whole package, no damage. And I included no cheats, no mods because this is a PC release. Therefore, I feel the need to mention that there are no cheats, no mods, and there's no accessibility enabled. This game does not have accessibility features, so I don't have to put accessibility. No accessibility enabled. All right. So for this first level, I'm just going to basically discuss what I've learned. Let me make sure. I don't think I can keep track of my time. Let's see. It's 8:37. I'll stop at 9:35. I'll just make sure I keep track of all that. So the first level, we got snakes. I believe that's just it. I'm clicking through the videos I have uploaded. It's just easier. So we got different colored snakes. We got green snakes and blue snakes. Oh, of course, yeah, blue snakes. And so these setups are actually very, very interesting. The way they have some of these. Now this is the first level. Things are not going to be too crazy. I think this works on a Mario Brothers turtle shell logic, Koopas, where the green snake is able to fall off, but the purple snakes are not. I believe because the only reason why is because the green snakes, I think, are the only ones that actually charge at you. Let me see, right here. Yeah. I believe the purple snakes do not attack you, so therefore they stay on a straight path, they do not fall off, but the green snakes do. So I don't know if that's a direct reference to Mario Brothers or just typical video game design. It's probably just typical video game design. They might have done it unintentionally because it's just a. So I guess it's a good color code design, I suppose. So in the middle of the first level, you get your hammer. I know it took me the first few attempts to figure out that you can actually just simply throw it from where you're standing, and it'll get all the gems above. I thought that was a really cool incidental find. And so the first level didn't really introduce anything very unique challenge wise. I'm just kind of flipping through, and I don't really the only really thing that was challenging is just messing up at a particular part. I was originally going to do something unique with this. Well, actually, the snake. The one little odd part that I haven't seen again in the game is the part where you got to help the NPC by killing all the snakes. However, technically, there are other sections like that, but an NPC is not involved. You do have areas where it closes you off until every enemy is killed, and so you press on. But however, NPC involvement is not. Also, the first level is really the only time where you see NPCs in the middle, just where you can just talk to them. Now there is another section. You have two crows that accompany you, and they will pop up every once in a while, and you can talk to them. But that's really about it. They're usually at the very end of the level, maybe in the middle, perhaps. But in terms of just dialogue, it's not that bad. Skipping dialogue is not atrocious. It's not unbearable, because I'm just really particular about having to sit through a bunch of dialogue. But thankfully, you can skip it all. I wish you could just skip it all entirely, but you have to skip every single piece of dialogue. So moving on to the second level. Second level is, of course, where I had to remove a lot of stuff. Now, I can still go without double jumping because, of course, this was before double jumping. This section also has a section right here that's sort of a repeat of the NPC, except the snakes fall from the ceiling, except from coming from the sides. One thing that I don't know if I should bother the developers about is that the enemy spawns are very bland. It's just an empty space. It looks like a tunnel you can go through, but you can't. I'm just wondering why the developers didn't decide to put extra effort into applying something aesthetically pleasing, like maybe some hay or rocks or something that the snakes can come out of instead of just an empty hole. The snails also come out of the hole, let me talk about the snails. The snails took me quite a few attempts to figure out what exactly I need to do to kill them, and I mean, it was very obvious. You just have to. They work basically on ghost logic. There's a lot of inspiration from Mario Brothers. I think they definitely use Mario Brothers as a helping hand in a lot of this design. Even my wife said, "Hey, this looks like Mario Brothers." I'm like, "Oh yeah, it does, doesn't it?" And the snails work pretty much like the ghosts, except you can kill them. So the interesting way on how you kill the snails is that you face away from them just like the ghosts, and they chase after you. However, you throw a hammer at the wall, and it hits them as of course, they're sticking out trying to chase you, and you jump over the hammer as you throw it at the wall, and it just destroys them. Another way to kill them is just basically cause them to fall off the cliff as they're chasing you, and that's it. So, without trying to get in too much detail, because I really want to talk about the boss real quick. Just a lot of little tiny sections are just really well done. There's this one section with the snails in particular where the one challenge I like to apply for these level runs is killing all the enemies, and that includes the snails. So killing the snails is actually a very fun and thinking outside the box potential. And so there's this one section where there's about 5. There's actually a lot of them in this area where there's platforms, and you don't have any drops so that for them to fall off. So you have to use walls. You have to use hammer rebounds to get rid of them, and you have to be very careful because they slip and slide. It kind of reminds me of Mario whenever he stops and you try to go to the left, he slides a little bit. It's kind of what it looks like, but the snails is affecting the snails. So that was fun. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of stuff I would love to go through, but unfortunately, I gave myself 10 minutes. I plan to eventually review this. I still need to finish Resident Evil 4, and maybe I can retouch on how I feel about that game. Tiny Thor, it's a short game. It was only $20, so perhaps maybe I'll wrap it up. Maybe I'll hold back on having to do a bunch of challenges because there are little mini challenges in this game, and it's basically little speed run sections, but you don't have a timer, unfortunately. I wish they kind of would have a pressing timer, but it's not really necessary, except unless you just want to hesitate. But the level kind of presses you on so much that you don't have time to hesitate. You either just go with the flow or you just die. You have platforms that have spikes that shoot up. You have platforms that basically just rot away when you touch them. I mean, it's constant stop and go. You cannot stop or the level will kill you. And I love that. Pretty much the only places where you can stop is where the parts where you can slide. And that's basically it. You have parts where you have to jump on top of bees. You definitely got to use double jump. That's got to happen. And that's just for the first challenge, the lofty leaps. Incredible challenge. And I just got finished with one level called the Meticulous Marksman. This one was incredible. And it's only the second challenge level. This level requires you to throw your hammer to hit the switches in a very precise way. You have to nail that or the water is going to get you and drown you. The second section is very similar. It's basically just the same thing but turn on the side. You gotta jump on the ledges. It is actually very tight. I didn't realize they were gonna make these timings really tight, and I love that. I love that they did that. I think maybe this alone is something I will concentrate on, and maybe just work on the levels later. That way I can at least finish the game and not get burnt out by it. I can just focus on these challenges. Then the next section of this challenge level is getting on a little conveyor platform. And you have to be very careful. The beginning of it's not very interesting because you got to destroy a lot of dirt to get through. Now, the part that I really love is this section where you got to hit the levers and remove the pillars. And there's this one section you have to aim your hammer in order for it to hit the lever in between the pillars in the middle. And I was like, it threw me off at first, and it was like that at the very end. I was like, here's the thing: it wasn't discouraging. It was just fascinating to me how they were able to do this. I just don't see challenging platformers like this anymore, and I'm just so happy to see it. This is only the early. I don't even know if I'm halfway through the game, but I cannot wait to see more of this. I mean, you can tell the excitement in my voice. I'm just so glad that a game like this came out. I'm just this is guaranteed second place unless something later on just blows me away. But Tiny Thor is just level design, just chef's kiss, incredible. All right, let me talk about the boss real quick because I'm running out of time. This boss is at the end of the Broken Bridge level. I have labeled this one of the best tutorial bosses I have ever seen. It's basically a Tetris concept boss. He drops bricks on you in different kind of shapes, and it's obviously Tetris inspired. There's no doubt about it. The shapes are exactly the same, and they're always different. It's never the same. I don't know how much of a consistency there is, but it seems like it's always different. I didn't really practice at it enough because once I got a consistent strategy down, I really didn't pay attention to that part. So the first phase, you basically it kind of almost works like a Castlevania boss, where you position it just right and you just kind of wail on it, and then the boss might reposition itself and you just kind of keep going. Then the second phase is when he goes to the left and he summons these little wooden pillars up, and you got to hit them in order to knock them down. And meanwhile, you got to pay attention to the Tetris bricks falling on top of you. I think this boss could have benefited with having more health, because the more you know about this boss, the faster it gets. And plus, if you get your timing down correctly, you can actually get the hammer to hit him and the wall at the same time. It just melts his health down, and that's quite an exploit. However, it still requires the precise timing, so it's kind of a good reward, I suppose. But it happened to me on accident, and unfortunately, I missed part of the phase where a giant pillar slams up. But I went with it because it shows a good example of what I'm talking about. How this boss could be adjusted a little bit better. Maybe have the hammer go through the boss once he hits it once, perhaps. That way you don't have to worry about the exploit. I'm just speaking to the developers basically right here. It's just, if you don't want this boss to be exploited that way, have it to where the hammer goes through the boss. That way you can't have the boss just absolutely melt because I didn't want that to happen, but I went with it because everything else went smoothly, and it wasn't really that big of a deal. So anyway, first impression of conclusion from our first impression of Tiny Thor. As you can tell, I'm absolutely impressed. Um, Now I do love Resident Evil 4, and I need to go back and finish it. I stopped at the part where you had to fight the two Garados, and it's not the fact that I couldn't do it; it's just the fact I kind of get discouraged because I couldn't do my knife only challenge. But I mean, I have finished it a couple times. I just been restarting it because I just really love that encounter design, and I was hoping to make the knife only run work. However, unfortunately, the knife I have just isn't strong enough. I mean, it's upgraded all the way. However, there's just nothing else I can do. And I don't even think the special upgrade would even help with that as well. So anyway, I highly recommend Tiny Thor. Definitely play it. $20 on Steam. Well, $18, but it's about $20 once taxes are applied. Definitely try it out. I think it's worth $20. And eventually it comes out on Switch, which is where I think a lot of people are probably going to gain more access to it, and maybe it'll gain more recognition because this is definitely a concept. Wouldn't that be cool if Tiny Thor, the sequel, would be like Teenager Thor or something like that, and then eventually get Grown Up Thor? Have like some kind of Lion King progression. There's something cool here, and of course a lot of people like probably if the game gets enough recognition, people will probably be like, oh no 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 no, we want him to remain Tiny Thor. I'm like, no no no, let's have something new. Let's see this Tiny Thor age into Big Thor, and we could probably get some killer combat. Maybe have Kratos make a little cameo appearance. Why not? Probably be a better game. But anyway, thank you for stopping by, and hopefully we'll have another podcast out soon. And I hope you all have a glorious day.